All right, we are now recording, so anytime that you would like to take over, Miss Samantha.
All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome to our third edition of Ham Talk. Thank you so much for joining us. We'd like to thank our sponsors, the Hamsters Weak Signal Group. And now we'll do some quick introductions in case this is the first time that you've joined us. Okay, my name is Sam Henley, KE0LMY. Over here, we have Renee.
Renee Kaysen, KE0LMZ.
Over here, we have Andrea.
Hello, Andrea K2EZ.
Up here, we have Melissa.
Hi, Melissa KI5ICQ.
And right here, we have Greg.
Greg, N5XO.
Okay, we managed to get through our opening this time and we all remembered our call signs. So I'm giving us bonus points. So let's start out with just a little bit of information. Now, coming off of our last show, we've had Christmas since then and we've had New Year's. And I bet we've all had a ton of activities that we've been taking part in. I'd actually like to start with Melissa because she's probably the one that's had the most interesting last couple of weeks. How you doing, Melissa?
Actually, yeah, it's been incredibly boring because the day before Christmas, pretty sure I got COVID. And it's just been hanging on pretty much ever since then. So hopefully it'll be gone soon. But I do have a new t-shirt.
Oh,
My t-shirt says, I survived COVID-19 and all I got was this lousy t-shirt.
Okay, on a future show, we're going to all have to have t-shirts. I'm going to have one that says COVID-19 survivor supporter shirt because I'm fortunate not to get it.
Yeah, I'm working to avoid that myself. Sorry.
Sorry about that. Does that mean I get to wear my Warsaw Fire one?
Yes, yes. You need to explain what the Warsaw Fire guys got for you.
Okay, so back in 2020, which is a sentence I'm thankful to say, the Warsaw Fire Protection District, the one that I'm a firefighter in, got me a t-shirt. On the back, it's the district's logo, and on the front is something along the lines of, I survived the 2020 pandemic, or I graduated during the 2020 pandemic.
Well,
so she's already got her pandemic shirt too. All right, let's go to Andrea. Andrea, how was your Christmas in the last couple of weeks?
Oh, it is crazy. I mean, I drove from Texas to New Jersey, spent the holiday up there and came right back down to Texas here to work. So I put another, 3,500 miles on Rover, back and forth. And while up in New Jersey, I did a bunch of operating, which will be in my segment, a bunch of demos from some hilltops from down in the valley. And really interesting. While doing some of the demos, other people showed up on the air. And so, working somebody 180 miles and somebody 100 miles shows up, and then somebody 40 miles away shows up on the air, all unplanned. So that was a lot of
fun.
Awesome. What I really liked is I got yelled at because we got snow at our ranch by Andrea, who was in New Jersey and not getting any.
I know. I mean, it snowed before I got there.
There you go, Renee. Yeah, I posted a picture of the, sorry, we got the stupid dogs that it's time to bark now. But we turned around and up at the ranch the Saturday, just a day or two after Andrea left for New Jersey, and it snowed big, juicy flakes here. Didn't stick, it went away as fast as it hit the ground, but I got yelled at for it, like it was my fault.
Well, it did snow here in Brenham over the weekend there. Well, I've lost track of my days. But anyway, we got about 1.5 inches of snow that managed to survive till the next morning. So,
wow.
All right, Renee, how was your Christmas?
Well, we ended up having Christmas parts 1 through 6 because things kept coming in late. And now we're gearing up for Christmas 7 because we ordered a Christmas present for my stepdad, which I will not talk about because he's in the other room. But my favorite present so far has to be these cat paw socks. Look, they've got little bean toes.
Those are awesome.
Everybody likes your.
So now I match my cats.
We'll have to keep that information on where we got them secret, or else give it out to everybody, because Greg will be getting emails. He'll be like, Sam, where did you get the cat socks?
Just put the link down in the description box.
There you go.
So, Greg, how was your Christmas?
It was pretty good. It was kind of disappointing. This is the first year we didn't have all of our kids and grandkids here. So, you know, that was kind of a disappointment. But all in all, it was pretty good. Kind of ridiculous to do a Zoom Christmas when you got all your kids living in town with you. But, you know, we're just not taking chances with this. So that's kind of riding it out like that. But it was a good Christmas. Got more work done. I was on vacation, so got more work done on the new shack. So eventually I'm going to have that finished. It's only going on to almost a year and a half now. So
you should know that it's never done. It's never done.
Right.
well, especially with me.
Right.
I build a shack. I get bored with it in about 14 months. I tear it down, start over. Well, this last time I want to turn the old hamshack, which is a big room, into a home theater room. So I moved the shack to the front, what used to be a front bedroom. And I thought 3 weeks. And that was Christmas of 2019 I started. And I'm about 85% done now. So eventually we will have the shack done.
It'll be time to start all over again.
Exactly. That's what I was about to say.
That
All right,
reminds
with
me.
that, let's go ahead and start the show here. We've had enough talk about my hamshack or lack thereof.
All right. So we've got a great show for you this month. I know some of you might want to know where the point is where we stop yapping and start talking about amateur radio stuff. So this will be the point right here. The first one that we're going to go to is we're actually going to start with Greg's segment. And one of the coolest things that you can do is look into amplifiers, especially ones maybe with preamp. Greg, do you have something to get us into that information?
Actually, that's an interesting question. And to be honest, I'm very much against amplifiers in your shack with a preamp. And I will explain why. All right, I really like your question, Samantha, and it leads right into what I wanted to discuss today. So thank you very much. So let's take a few moments and misconceptions of preamps and how to use them. First off, in my personal opinion, I think that in-shack preamps, such as our built-in to common brick amps from MFJ, TE amps, etc., are honestly a waste of money and provide no real benefit unless you're just looking to increase your S meter reading and noise. Your time and money would be much better spent on quality, low-loss feed line and high-gain antennas. If you are considering a preamp or you need a preamp, and there are times that you will need one and they'll provide a good benefit, you need to take a look at mast-mounted preamps and use them in a fashion that's going to benefit you. Mast-mounted preamps are designed to basically provide two primary functions. Number one, to help increase the weak signal that you're bringing in to a level your radio can decipher and turn into a working, readable signal. And from my point of view, the most important aspect of a mast-mounted preamp is to overcome the feed line loss that you have in your VHF, UHF antenna system. The problem with shack-mounted preamps is that they're basically going to increase the noise in your shack. They're great for raising your S meter level a few yes units, and with few exceptions are more or less not really useful for boosting a workable signal. Let's go ahead and go over why. All right, let's start breaking down why I have the viewpoint and opinion that I do. The first thing I want to remind everybody is that we are going to be keeping this basic, okay? We're trying to address this topic not only with the experienced amateurs who've been doing this for 30, 40 years, but the brand new hams that have just gotten into the hobby, and people who are just now looking at VHF, UHF weak signal operating, because it is vastly different than operating, say, FM2 meters, repeater operation and stuff. All right, this first picture you'll notice is my TE Systems 350 watt amplifier. This amp is used on my Simplex FM portion of the station for Simplex. And the first thing you're going to notice is it's got a preamp built in. And you're going to say, well, they sell amplifiers without the preamp built in from TE Systems. So Greg, why did you do that? Well, Greg's going to answer that question. And the simple reason is lack of patience. When I placed the order for it to replace a amp that was just not cost effective to repair anymore, was getting pretty old, they were out of stock on the amp model I wanted, which was the exact same amp minus the preamp. And so I went ahead and didn't want to wait 4 to 5 weeks for them to get those back in stock. So I went ahead and ordered it with the preamp. Now, that said, that switch has never been turned on and never will be unless someone comes in and accidentally bumps it. Okay. Now let me explain why. Let's go ahead and look at this from a basic point of view. Let's say you've got a signal coming into your antenna that's an S3. All right. Now, by the time you go through your feed line, which is RG8 to LMR 400 or something like that, and a couple 100, 125, 150 feet, that S3 signal is now going to be an S1 or less because of the feed line loss. So your radio doesn't have anything to work with. All right. You kick on your preamp. Well, let's just flip that switch there and bada boom, bada bang, that'll solve my problem. No, it won't, because the preamp's got the same signal to work with that your radio does. Basically, nothing. All right, so you've done nothing but amplify noise and make your S meter go up. You've not brought in any workable signal to your radio. Okay, now let's turn around and move that preamp to the top of the tower. Same exact scenario. But the preamp is at the top of the tower right at the antenna. All right, so now what we've got is we've got an S3 signal hitting the antenna, preamp boosted up to, we'll just say S6, because that's where you've got your settings. All right, so you turn around, you boost that signal up to about an S6, and now you go down, you still got the same 2 S units loss through your hard line or feed line, and it hits the radio, but now instead of a barely readable S1, you've got a workable S2, S3 signal at your radio, okay? So you now are hearing that. Not only is your S meter going up, but the signal and workable signal at that is up, okay? So that's the basics of why you want to move that preamp to the top of the tower at your antenna. All right, now let's look at how and why, okay? There are about a half a dozen good manufacturers that build mass-mounted preamps, all right? In my opinion, the best one to go with is SSB Electronics. Now, they're a little pricey, but you get what you pay for. Not only are they low noise, but they're also capable of handling high power if you buy the high power models. They make them ranging from 200 watt models to full legal limit models. First thing I'm going to address is, in my opinion, always buy the absolute highest power that you can afford, because while you may only be running 100 watts today, what happens tomorrow when you get really addicted to this hobby and you kick your power up to 300, 400 watts, okay? You don't want a preamp that you're gonna fry. All right, now, one of the reasons that in-shack mounted preamps are popular is simplicity, all right? You hook the antenna up, you hook the radio up, you hook power up, you turn it on, bada boom, bada bang, you're done. Not so with a mast-mounted preamp, okay? First thing you've got preamp up there. It cannot handle transmit power in any way, shape, or form. Not even 1 little watt. It's going to go bye-bye, all right? So the first thing you need to do is, not only have you just spent, we'll say for an SSB electronics preamp, not only have you just spent $600 to $800 for a preamp, but now you got to buy a sequencer. Now, what's a sequencer do? All right, well, the sequencer, basically, when you key your transmitter, your microphone, your Vox, whatever you're using to trip your transmitter, it's going to do multiple things in a specific order and sequence. It is going to, number one, shut down and ground that mast-mounted preamp. Number two, it's going to turn on your transmitter amp. And then number three, it's going to activate your exciter or your radio, okay? So shut off the preamp, turn on your amplifier, key the transmitter. And now you're set and you're operating, okay? And it does that very quickly, but it's a vital piece of equipment. Now, here's the problem. You just spent $700, $800, $900 on a mast-mounted preamp. Now you got to spend another $200 to $300 on a sequencer. All right. So one of the things I did, I originally started out, I've got 2 sequencers I had in the shack at one time. And then when I started buying higher end amplifiers, such as the Bicos and stuff that you see in the picture here, I went ahead and they had the advantage of having the sequencer built in. You'll see a button on the amps, the 2 Bicos. We'll go zoom into the Bico a little bit. You'll notice that preamp button. That's not a preamp built into the amplifier like it was on the TE systems. That is a sequencer button turning the preamp on and off. So I can completely shut the preamp off in my shack right there, and it won't key up. If I put it in the on position, it now goes through the sequencer on the amplifier like we had set up. So it shuts down the preamp, it keys the amplifier right there, and then it turns around and keys the radio, transmit. So it performs just like a sequencer. It's built in. And you'll notice all of my amplifiers have that except for 6 meters. My alphas do not have that on 6 meters in HF, but all my VHF, my 2 meters, my 220, my 432 Bico amps all have the sequencer built in. And my Gemini amp for 1296 also has it built in, as you can see right there, okay? And again, even though it says preamp, that's for mast-mounted preamp, and that's turning the sequencer on and off. If you've got it in the on position, the preamp will work, and the sequencer will run through its normal functions. If you turn it off, it powers everything down to the preamp, and that's all it does, okay? So now let's look at a typical station with the preamp. Let's go up, we'll just go to my 2 meter. All right, first of all, I have multiple antennas hooked up to my, my radio for 2 meter weak signal, okay? So I have a stacked set of K5VH Omni antennas. There's 2 of them up there phased together. That comes down to the tower top after the rotor loop and everything. And then I have a set of 15 element stacked antennas for 30 elements that I can aim someplace. And then when I want a wider pattern, I have a 17 element single 2 meter antenna. So all of those are on my mast. They come down with the rotor loops, you know, for the antenna, and feed into a remote relay box because it's just not cost effective or practical to run big, heavy hardline all the way back into the shack. So I have a sorry about that, a tower mounted relay box, remote relay box, again by SSB Electronics. And each antenna plugs in. My Omnis go into antenna port 1, My stacked beams go into antenna port 2, and my single 17 element goes into antenna port 3, and 4 is not used. So that comes out. So the antennas come in, go into that, and then I've got a short drop out of the relay box, which goes into my mast-mounted preamp, and then that plugs directly into the 3/4 inch hardline, okay? And that comes down. Now, also just before where each antenna comes into the relay box is also a surge protector. So each antenna is individually surged, protected for static and lightning protection. And then they go into the relay box and then the preamp. And I did that for a couple reasons. Number one, it does no good to have a lightning protector before the preamp or after the preamp. We want to keep surges and static from coming into it. And that protects that, okay? And all of that's fed down and through. So now what happens is I'm getting a good quality signal coming in over my cable, and it's matching the loss. Now, the other advantage to most mast-mounted preamps is you can actually adjust the gain, okay? First mistake I see a lot of people new to preamps do is they sit there and turn around, they've got a preamp that's capable of 20 dB gain. So they crank that puppy all the way up, they stick it on top of their tower, and they can't hear anything. Well, what's going on? Why is it hearing less than when I did before? Well, the simple answer is you're desensing your radio. You're overdriving your radio so much with a strong signal, you're actually desensing it, all right? Sort of like having your next door neighbor operate. Well, here, let's put it simply. Have you ever sat there and used a mobile and you're talking on a repeater and you got a friend that's in the car right behind you talking on the repeater and you're having trouble hearing him even though the repeater is good for both of you? Well, what's happening is he's desensing your radio while he's transmitting, plus FM capture, but that's a whole different story. All right, so you don't want to desense the radio. So now you need to adjust it. So how do you adjust this? All right, well, what we want to look at is, let's say you've got 3 dB loss on your feed line, okay? So what you want to do is overcome that loss. So we want to dial in about 3 dB gain on your preamp. All right, now we also want to boost weak signals. So where I would start at on that preamp is, instead of starting up and working down, start down and work up, okay? You'll make less trips up your tower adjusting things. All right, so in that instance, I would start out with about a 6 to 7 dB gain setting. You're overcoming your feed line loss and you're boosting some of those really weak signals that are coming in. And that's kind of where I would get started. Now, you may make 1 or 2 more trips up. You may want to increase that gain a little bit. You may want to dial it down a little bit. A lot of that depends on your radio and how it handles strong signals coming in. But you don't want to overpower the radio, basically. Okay. So as I said earlier, mast-mounted preamps add a lot of complexity to your station, but they can be a big benefit. All right. I haven't used my 2-meter preamp in, like I said, probably 2, maybe 3 years, because when I first put that up there, I had 1/2-inch hardline up at the top of the tower, about 140 feet. And then I went to 3/4 inch hardline, and that reduced the need for the preamp quite a bit. And then when we did the last work on the tower, it was all replaced with 1 5/8 hardline up the tower. I've got 3 runs of 1 5/8 going up that tower. So I have extremely low loss So basically, when I turn on my preamp, I am really hitting my radio hard with a signal coming in and running the risk of desensing everything. There are a few stations that I've worked that the preamp was a help. They were extremely weak and I was able to boost them up, but I also had to turn the RF gain down on the radio in the shack to help compensate for that a little bit. So anyway, that's it. That's very basic, in the nutshell, explanation of the preamps and why to use them. They can be a big benefit, but before I spent money on preamps, I would get the best feed line that I can get up on that tower. Then I would look at spending money on preamps. Okay. All right. Back over to you, Samantha. Okay.
Well, Greg, I had no idea. That is a lot of information and it gives us something to really think about. So whether you agree or disagree with Greg's point of view, he definitely gave us some great information to listen to. All right, so next we're going to go to Miss Melissa, and she's going to tell us all about who she has for her section on Show Us Your Shack.
Yes. Coming up in the show this month, we're going to be viewing a very nice shack layout operated by Philip White, NO5G, so that's coming right up. And if you want to show us your shack or your antenna, send us your photos and information to hamster-updates at 144-200.net.
Awesome.
NO5G found great use of an old office desk. On the bottom right is a Gemini 2 1.2K amp with the ICOM 9700 sitting on top of it. Philip loves and works a lot with weak signal SSB on 2 meters, and he also works and loves FM simplex. Just to its left, right in the middle, is the main HF rig, the Yaesu FT950, with the Ameritron AL80B to the left of it. All of this equipment is situated close and for ease of operation. Here's a closer look at the ICOM 9700 and the Gemini 2 1.2K linear amp. And squirrel, I see a Kenwood TS4405 HF transceiver up there. A little bit closer look at the HF rig, the Yaesu FT950 and the ICOM 746 as its backup. And in this next pic, you'll see the high gain DCU3 programmable automatic rotator controller. This is NO5G's SSB 144 megahertz stacked M2 17 element Yagi, one at 70 feet and one at 56 feet on the Roan HDBX freestanding tower, fed with 1 5/8 inch Andrews Heliax. Nice lawn, Philip. And last, but certainly not least, here's NO5G's small tower with M2 4329 WL Yagi at 50 feet, fed with LMR 600, and a Cushcraft 215 WB 15 element 2 meter beam antenna for FM vertical at 65 feet. Thus ends our segment of Show Us Your Shack, and we thank Philip, NO5G, for letting us view his operations. And if you have a shack or an antenna you want to show off, send those to us with a description to hamster-updates at 144-200.net.
Oh man, Melissa, Philip's shack was pretty awesome. I'm excited that he sent those pictures in and got everything to you.
Yeah, I love that lawn. He had a very nice lawn.
All right, so next on Ham Talk, we're going to have a segment from Marija YU3AWA, and she is in Serbia and does YOTA, which is Youth on the Air, with her school. So let's take a look at that clip.
That ought to be really fun.
Hello my friends, today I have one special video for you. I'm sure most of you know that December is the month dedicated to young people, and it's one of my favorite activities during the year. I can proudly say that my radio club is the most active radio club in Serbia. And almost every day you can hear the special call sign Yankee Tango 20, Yankee Oscar Tango Alpha on the bands, and often under the call sign are my students. But the main question is, what exactly is the YOTA month and what are the goals? So, let's start!
KIRZ, this is Yankee Tango 20, Yankee Oscar Tango Alpha. Echo India 7 Kilo Whiskey report for you is 5959. My name is Mickey, like Mike, Italy, Kilo Italy, Roger.
During December, you have opportunity to hear many YOTA stations on the bands. YOTA is an abbreviation of Youngsters on the Air. This means that only young people under the age of 26 have the opportunity to work with a special YOTA call sign and a call CQ. The main goal is to encourage and motivate youngsters to be active on the radio waves. However, YOTA month is not just a month for youngsters. It's the month of all of us. Older and more experienced hams should be the biggest support to youngsters and help them on their way. Young people really need your help. Today, it's difficult to be different from the majority and to survive to the end. Today, there are many obstacles that the youngsters need to overcome in order to succeed in what they want. As someone who teaches young people, I know what problems can be found. And not only do I listen to them, I understand them, I advise them and talk about my first experiences. Those who gave the hobby a chance and gave it time to indulge are enjoying a full life today. This is also an appeal for all of us, younger and older, not to let this hobby disappear. That is why we have to fight for survival with all our strength. It's our turn to be committed and to show what we can do. Let's work as a team. This hobby needs a new generation of young people, and we are the ones who should make it possible. Young people are our future. That is why I invest all of my time, energy and efforts. I work with young people, I train them, I haven't stopped. Every day something new is learned, and the day is not a lost day if you did what you love or work for the benefits of what you love. If you care about the hobby and want to make it popular with young people, do it. There is no money to pay for the smile of child that you have learned something and see in you a role model. If you have time, start teaching young people. Tell them about the hobby. Tell them about your experiences. Tell them about the benefits they can have if they become hams. Imagine each of us learning only one child. In a year, we would be double that. Twice more. Now, can you imagine how much power we actually have in our hands? Think about that.
All right, the next segment on our Ham Talk show for this month is with Miss Andrea. Miss Andrea, what do you have for us this month?
You mean it's my turn already, Sam? Oh gosh. What I've got today, we're going to be talking about VHF, UHF propagation, line of sight, and specifically tropospheric propagation. We're going to get out in the field, do some actual testing, and we're going to have some fun.
Well, that sounds
all right. I like the idea of fun because sometimes it can be really hard, specifically, like you said, getting any of this stuff to work. And I, again, here in Missouri, terrible rock underneath just about everything we work on. And I have the worst problem. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Thanks, Sam. All right. Well, I'll get started on it. Here we go. Welcome to our segment on tropospheric propagation. I hope it was worth the wait. Tropospheric propagation allows communication on the VHF and UHF bands of 200 and more miles on a daily basis, nearly 24/7. It shouldn't be confused with tropospheric ducting, which it often does get confused with. Ducting is a special case of tropospheric propagation, and ducting can allow far longer distances than 200 miles. Today's discussion is going to be about the everyday propagation you can kind of expect. So let's start off by going up to a local hilltop where I have a sked arranged with Dave K2EZ, which will demonstrate some of what can be done with tropospheric propagation. K1RZ, K2EZ Rover. Hi, Dave. I've got you about an S3 to S5 here on this stingy S meter. How do you copy me there in Maryland?
Yeah, I copy you good. You're 2.5. You're S7 on the meter. Got some noise, so good copy, Q5. Q5, where are you today? Over.
I'm in Fox November 20. Papa X-ray, FN20 Papa X-ray, about 180 miles from you there, and so you're doing really good.
Yes, you are too, by the way. You're doing great, and now I remember that spot. I remember working you at FN20 Papa X-ray many times in the past, so that's good to get to find you up here in the Northeast again. Got you in the log.
One question for you, Dave. What kind of DX do you expect to get on a 2-meter single sideband? Who can you work regularly, and what kind of distance is involved there?
Okay, well, regards to 2-meter sideband, typically 300 miles, 250, 330, without too much strain on what I would call average conditions. Similarly, a foot station. 330 miles, I'd like to say 400 miles, but I'm looking out there, I don't see that many in that range most of the time.
Okay, so, and by average conditions, you mean pretty much any time when you turn on the radio, unless conditions are really terrible, you expect to be able to get that 300 plus miles?
It's pretty normal, you know. There are some opportunities for DX, as you know, on this band, and on the VHF bands, but under average conditions, 300 plus miles.
How cool is that? 180 miles, simplex contact, not quite the same fidelity, as FM, but still Q5 copy with single sideband, and well beyond line of sight. My elevation at that location was about 850 feet. Dave's elevation is about the same, and a radio line of sight calculator will say that the maximum line of sight distance we could get with those elevations is only about 74 miles. So how does this work? To illustrate how this works, I took this photo 20 minutes after sunset. During that 20 minutes, the sunset has moved 300 miles further west, yet you can see plainly here, it is quite evident that the sun is someplace below the horizon. And if we were able to modulate the sun, we could easily see that modulation and decode it. It is the same basic concept we do with radio. And the reason we can tell the sun is there is because the atmosphere refracts the sunlight as well as scatters some of the sunlight. The same thing happens with radio waves, similar, I should say, not exactly the same. And so what we try and do when using tropospheric propagation is keep our signal low to the horizon and illuminate a part of the sky far away from where we are. If, for example, we want to illuminate the top 5,000 feet, well, that means we're looking at elevations between 20,000 and 25,000, and line of sight to that elevation from the horizon is 175 miles. Thus, if I'm putting out signal towards the horizon, I can get my signal to a point 175 miles away, and somebody else with their antenna that's 175 miles beyond that can see that same part of the sky. And if that part of the atmosphere provides some refraction, which it does along thermal layers, and also pockets of air that are slightly different density, they will tend to diffract the radio waves and cause some scatter. So distances 2 times 175, which is, I got to think about this, 350 miles, are quite plausible to reach using this propagation mode. This mode works independent of operating mode, single sideband, CW, FM. The atmosphere doesn't care. The propagation still works. The problem, and the reason why many don't observe this, is because, for example, FM isn't very efficient. Somebody running single sideband has about a 10 to 12 dB advantage over an FM signal. And the weak signal operator will have typically larger gain antennas, maybe run more power than the typical FM operator that might have 50 watts and some sort of omni antenna or an antenna on the car. So once you put beams at both ends, you have the 10 dB advantage of single sideband plus whatever extra power, say 150 watts, another 3 or 6 dB running higher power. You've got 20 to 25 dB extra performance in the system there. And because the tropospheric propagation isn't really strong, you can work it with single sideband, CW, when FM often isn't enough. During certain times, there is enhancement to the amount of refraction going on. Typically, this occurs in the morning after the sun starts warming the ground and thermal layers form, or again in the evening after sunset. And under those enhanced conditions, quite frequently, people operating FM do start to notice that they can get further distances. And this is one of the big variables we see in VHF propagation. So if you're operating single sideband, and if you've been a single sideband operator, these kind of distances aren't really remarkable because you can work it on almost a daily basis. For the FM operator, you may see it on occasion. I mentioned tropospheric ducting before. Ducting is a special case where there are two thermal layers, thermal layers, which are also refractive layers. When you have these multiple layers, the signal can get trapped between the layers and bounce back and forth and go really long distances. One of the best known long distance ducts is between Hawaii and California. That's thousands of miles. The reason it's called a duct, obviously, is because you've got one layer and another layer, and with the signal trapped between them, it acts like a duct to transfer the signal from one location to a distant location. Some people talk about tropospheric ducting as a single layer, and this is where some of the confusion goes on. And it's also important to note that tropospheric ducting is rather uncommon. I won't say it's so rare that you might only see it once in a few years. It happens regularly, but it's not an everyday thing. Whereas the tropospheric propagation that we're talking about here is essentially daily, 24/7. Now, you may be thinking, well, I kind of cheated. I went up to a hilltop, didn't I? Wasn't that stacking the cards in my favor? Well, I guess sort of. It is a little bit easier from any hilltop. But just to prove the point here, from my house, I'm down in a valley. So I went and worked Dave from the car in my driveway. Now, in this photo, you can see this is facing the direction of Dave. And you can see it kind of faces into my neighbor's house. And you can't really see very far through the trees. And this hill that I am on the side of rises another 300 or so feet in the direction of Dave. Now, I couldn't work Dave real strong here. In fact, when I rotate the Yagis, I find that this hill across the way, I get a signal peak from, and I get a signal from this hill off a couple miles to the opposite direction from Dave. Obviously, there's some reflections here. And I can point directly at him and get about the same signal, which may be refraction over the hill. With all these signals bounce around, I was able to flip on the Omni and work Dave from the Omnis on my vehicle just as well as I can work him using the Yagis. So here's a little clip of me working him on CW. Not quite as strong here in the valley, but I could still work him. When it comes to tropospheric propagation, local obstructions tend to have a bigger effect than distant obstructions. Just because 20 miles away or 30 miles or 50 or 100 miles away along this path between me and Dave, there may be 2,000 feet ridges, those aren't very important because the target is really the atmosphere, the high part of the atmosphere. But this hill near where I am does obstruct. It doesn't let me look at that atmosphere. And just to illustrate how this happens, I took a drive a couple miles up to the far end of the lake. It's a lower elevation than my house. It's a couple miles further from Dave, but that 300-foot rise is much less impressive from 2 miles away than it is right on the side of the ridge. In this clip, you'll see I can work Dave with essentially the same kind of signals I had from that other hilltop. Even though I'm at a lower elevation down by the lake, the key thing is I don't have nearby obstructions in the direction of Dave. So let's look at the clip.
K2 Echo Zulu, K2EZ, K2 Echo Zulu, K1RZ, K2EZ Rover, K1RZ, are you there?
K1RZ, Kilo 2 Echo Zulu Rover. Do you copy me, Dave?
Yeah, I got you, S6, that's a good spot, I think. K2EZ Rover, K1RZ, Mike 19 Juliet Hotel, you're 5 and 6.
So there you have it. 3 contacts with K1RZ illustrating what can be achieved with tropospheric propagation. But wait, there's more. After that last contact with Dave, I was heading home when K3WHC came up on the air, and I was able to stop and talk to him. K3WHC was about 100 miles from me, and here's a clip. Let's take a look. Okay, I hear the other station in there, up and down a little bit as I move along the road. I'm going to pull off to the side of the road here, see if I can get your call. I think this is a little better spot. How do you copy me? Okay, I got about 90% of the copy on there. You're about a 4x1 here, 4x1. What's your call again? Okay, I got it. And what's your grid there, Steve? QSL to FN10 Papa Alpha. I'm in FN21 Quebec Alpha. FN21 Quebec Alpha. There you go. Not just 3 K1RZ demos, but 1 K3WHC demo. Still, I can't let you go with just those 4 demos. As an added bonus, as I was continuing home, I got a call from W2KV. Not quite as far as either Dave or Steve, but W2KV was 40 miles away from me, right over those tall hills that I was next to. So let's look at that contact. W2KV, K2EZ Rover, Fox November 21, Quebec Alpha here.
Roger, very good, Andrea. And it's Dave, by the way. Dave. And yeah, we're FM20 Oscar Kilowatt. And yeah, that's cool. Well, you know, that rover spaceship gets out great regardless of where you are.
There you go. One more solid contact to wrap up the demonstrations. So for this low price of tropospheric propagation, not only do you get 3 K1RZ demos, you also get the 1 K3WHC demo, and as a free bonus, a W2KV demo. 5 demos for the same low price. This is Kilo 2 Echo Zulu roving reporter, Ham Talk.
Well, Andrea, I got to tell you, I learned so much. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to go back and watch it again. I am so excited that we are doing this show. And I got to tell you, that Billy Mays reference speaks to me, and I bet you it'll speak to a lot of people.
Yeah, that was a fun, the way you just kind of fed it right in. I liked it.
Well, I really do. I think that that'll really speak to a lot of people that are about my age. All right, so that brings us straight into my section of this month's show. And what I did is there's a group called the Rat Pack, which hosts a bunch of different training for different parts of amateur radio. The part that they ask me to do a little bit of training on almost every month now is ARES. So the presentation that I gave to them was about working ARES in rural jurisdictions. Now, it was way too long for us to fit into this show, but what Greg's going to do is put in some clips for you guys. And if you want to see the full presentation, which was almost 2 hours long, then he's going to drop right down there into the segments, the section down below us, the link to the Rat Pack's video, so that you can watch the whole thing in its entirety if you'd like. Benton and Camden counties, the Amateur Radio Emergency Service is a part of our local emergency. I'm sure most of you already know what it is, but I'm just going to go through it with you. These local emergency operations plans go into effect if there's a large-scale emergency in order to keep everything running smoothly and to manage the emergency. They work tightly with the COOPs. I'm sure most of you know the continuity of operations. We feel that it's vitally important to have amateur radio included in the actual LEOP for the jurisdiction. This can be extremely hard sell, which I'll get into in a few minutes, whether it's due to the history with the hams or with the hams themselves. Like, people want to say they're not professionals. I've been, I guess, lucky so far that every single amateur radio operator, with the exception of one, has been an absolute privilege to work with. They have conducted themselves at times better than non-professionals, or better than professionals. They are so helpful, and that's all they want to do. They want to help, and this is how they can do it. So I'll get into a little bit more as we get down through the program. The relationship with first responder agencies is one of the hardest things, if you don't already have it in place, to establish. In Benton County, amateur radio operators are 99% completely accepted by the first responders. They have a lot of respect for each other. They understand each other's capabilities, and there is no problem whatsoever. They don't butt heads. They each know where their lines are and where their place is, and they don't argue. They don't fight, and it's beautiful. I love Benton County. Can't say enough for it. Camden County, it's a little tougher because those issues with having an amateur radio operator who did something wrong or made someone angry really stuck in there, and it's the history that is really causing the problem. So what I'm having to do in Camden County is work agency by agency to rebuild the trust and the solid friendships and relationships that need to be there, because we need to work together. One of the amazing things I just found out, I literally just found this out, is that one of the fire chiefs for Camden County is a ham radio operator. So ever since I found that out, I went, okay, we're going to be good with at least one. So the biggest thing that I've seen as a benefit in this and the way to help start healing this wound, number one, is to have the acceptance that nobody else is going to heal this wound, so I'm going to take it on me. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to work with these people, let them see, because I'm an amateur radio operator, that I conduct myself professionally, and let them see that there is the possibility they can get back past those incidents or those injuries or those hard feelings and start working with a new generation, start working with different amateur radio operators, because just because you don't like one doesn't mean you don't like all of us. Were there any questions so far, Dan?
None yet.
Okay. I know a lot of this is stuff you guys already know, and it's not hard to preach to the choir, but this presentation is actually going out on the podcast that I do as well. So, all right. County exercises and training. One of the greatest things that I think amateur radio operators are invited to, and when they get to the level that they're invited to them, is the county exercises and training. And at that point, I feel that you've been accepted back, or you've been accepted. When they will let you come in, like our county, Benton County, has an emergency communications trailer. If the emergency management agency and all of the first responders let the amateur radio operators be the ones to bring the MCOM trailer to the staging area or the location where it's needed, you have trust. You have that perfect mesh where everybody's got a job, they stick to it, it's great. And I can say over and over again that we've established that here, and it is beautiful, and it is a wonderful thing when you're able to do it. The way that we stepped up into being able to do that is we started by just coming to tabletop exercises. We didn't have our hands on equipment. This was back before I was working for the EMA, but we didn't have our hands on equipment. We just came in when they had tabletop exercises and sat down and went, we can help with that. We can help with that. If you'd like, you know, you can assign us to something other than amateur radio. That's one of the biggest sales points to an EMA for ARIES. And if you look in your EC001 or any of the field manuals, you'll see it says you're not restricted to just working on amateur radios. Even as ARIES, you can work on anything that you can use for communication. So even if the phones are still up and they need somebody to grab a phone line, go for it.
To watch the remainder of this great video, please go to the link shown on the screen and check out their other videos while you're there.
All right, so now we're going to go on to one of our newest semi-regular guests. We had such a great time interviewing Renee. Melissa, as a matter of fact, had such a great time interviewing Renee, KE0LMY, that Greg decided it'd be great to have a young ham section of our show. That way, if you have some little ones that are excited about getting into our hobby, they have someone who's around their age to give them a little introduction into what it is and how to do it. So let's talk a little bit with Renee about some upcoming things that she might want to do for our show.
Thank you, Mom, for that awesome introduction. Well, I figure that as the PIO of Foxtrot's Little Hams, I'm probably the most authorized person currently in this household to talk about that sort of thing. I'm looking forward to explaining how young hams can interact with things like contests on the radio, what they can do to tell others about amateur radio, stuff like that. Awesome. You'll get to see Foxtrot, and maybe even Buzzer will come visit.
Oh, somebody kidnapped my bee. For those of you who don't know, that's Buzzer the bee. He is the mascot of the Camden County, Missouri Emergency Management Agency, and he actually has his own webpage. So we'll get that information to Greg in case you little ones want to know all about little Buzzer the bee too.
That sounds good. Renee, welcome aboard, and we look forward to seeing your first segment coming up next month.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, we've had a pretty awesome show this month. We're really excited to see how you guys liked it. Hopefully, Greg's sprinkled in a little bit of our crazy, insane, just blooper reel for you. Although I am still going to try and talk him into doing a long one at the end of the year. Just our December one should be all about Christmas and bloopers. That should be what our December one is.
We got a lot of them already.
I think that's okay. Hey, it lets the people know that we're real people. It's not really scripted. As much as Greg tries to make it scripted, it's not scripted.
I'm a failure.
So, Andrea, let's go with your final thoughts. And so I made you wait till this past time.
Well, looking forward to seeing this all put together. And next month, I'm hoping to be able to show some video from the January contest that is this coming weekend. Going to get together with a bunch of other rovers, so it should be pretty exciting times.
Oh, now that does sound exciting. I'm pretty excited about that. I'd like to see the pictures of everybody's cars to see if they really do look like porcupines. And now let's go to Greg for your final thought.
One of the things, my final thought is we're going to get you on weak signal 2 meters yet. There's a horizontal antenna in your future.
I see that happening because as soon as my husband sees this, he'll be like, oh, guess what? All right, Miss Melissa.
Well, I just hope to be much more productive than I have been in the last month.
Girl, we all
and hopefully I'll get to actually physically see and spend some time with Greg, because you know he is my mentor, my Elmer. So looking forward to that.
Aw, Greg, that's so sweet of her. You better be nice to her or I will throw this pen at you. See, it's pen. Now, Miss Renee, for you and Buzzer's final thoughts.
Well, Buzzer, Foxtrot, and I are all looking forward to releasing our first segment next month.
Looking forward to seeing what you come up with, Renee.
You'll get to see a lot.
She's already got a good amount of stuff that she can choose from. So I think she's going to have something pretty awesome. And if you guys are really nice to her, she might even drag her brother on because he's going to be 16 in February. So it's his birthday.
He and Roger both very much made a point not to come into view of the camera.
We can bribe him or something. All right. And as for me, I am super excited that everybody has taken the time to not only watch these shows, but has commented or messaged Greg, because he really does put his heart and soul into this. He really does spend a lot of time thinking everything through. Like I said, we don't really listen when it comes to the scripting. He'll figure that out. But he really does think everything through and try and provide you guys with an awesome show, a really entertaining show. So we hope that you'll join us next month. February will be really exciting. My husband is doing Winter Field Day, so I might have him in for my segment on what our club is doing for Winter Field Day, and that'll match right up with what Andrea is doing. So we look forward to having you communicate back to us on whether you're interested in what we're doing, or maybe even giving us recommendations. And don't forget to submit the pictures of your shack so that Melissa has some awesome stuff to choose from. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to our sponsors, the Hamster Weak Signal Group. We couldn't do this without them, and we are really excited with what they bring to the amateur radio community. Thank you from all of us here at Ham Talk, and we'll see you next month.
Have a good one, everybody.
Bye-bye.